Well, yes, ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Donald Trump has said he wants to eliminate income taxes. It is very complicated. It would need Congress, and certainly I'm sure a lot of people would be on board with this. I'm going to go through the dynamics of it. Is it possible? You've got some experts saying no, it's not. You've got other experts saying yes, it is. The idea here would be to use the tariff model. The United States did not have an income tax up until 1913. The government was a lot smaller, which is another thing Trump's trying to do by implementing Doge and other government efficiency programs. You want to cut government spending, get rid of all the stuff that's wasteful and totally useless, as well as taxing strategic countries that you can afford to because we've got enough domestic production to be able to do it. So let's listen to see what Trump said yesterday about it.
He's going to be very rich again, and it's going to happen very quickly. It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. Do you know the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States.
Right, and so he's referencing before the introduction of the income tax, and that could work if you have a more simple government with significantly less government spending, which is what a lot of presidents promise. They don't deliver with Trump, maybe because he's got the Department of Government Efficiency and also just the United States potentially getting away with the idea of our country being so ridiculously powerful, we could have other countries pay our taxes for us kind of by proxy through tariffs because of the amount of stuff that we produce and the fact that other countries know they have to have a good relationship with us because of how powerful we are just in terms of our military and our overall might and our economy and the US dollar and everything.
Relatively speaking, in other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887, and this commission had one function: what to do with all the money that we took in. It was so enormous that they had no idea. It was a blue ribbon committee. It was set up 1887, and what to do with all of the money that we had. And again, Teddy Roosevelt was a beneficiary because when McKinley was killed, he took over this vast sum of money, and he did all of those national parks and all of the other things. And I'm not knocking him, but he was given a vast amount of money. And that was all made through tariffs. We had no income tax. The income tax came in 1913. As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
Right, so that's Trump discussing the idea of eliminating the income tax and the surplus money that they had from going heavy on tariffs in the late 1800s to 1913 before they introduced the income tax, which does generate around $2 trillion in revenue. You would have to get back some of that money, obviously, through tariffs. Right now, when you look at what we generate in tariffs every year, it's about 1/20th of that $2 trillion, but it wouldn't be the full $2 trillion. The idea would be you would also eliminate wasteful government spending, which is why Trump is implementing Doge and other programs, and also cutting some of these federal government workers that Trump and a lot of Republicans deem as useless. If you cut those, you're going to save more money. And the idea is you can save some of that money so you don't really have to recreate $2 trillion in tariffs from other countries. Now, when it comes to the tariffs, I think you have to be very strategic about it. It's based off of things that we already produce domestically. I think tariffs in general are a good thing, especially for a country like the United States, because in general, it's more of a leverage type thing to where the United States obviously is so ridiculously powerful. We can tariff other countries, and sure, they might start a trade war with us, but inevitably they know they would lose that trade war. Most of the time, it's just posturing from the other countries because of how powerful the United States is. They really can't do anything about it. I would say if Trump is going to do this, it would not be wise to go into a trade war. I know Trump's talked about this with Canada or Mexico because we just trade with them so much. And if you're talking about multiple countries involved in this, you're kind of stretching yourself thin in terms of that. The idea of getting into multiple trade wars, it becomes complicated. I would target, and I think this is probably what he's going to do, countries where the United States already produces a lot in terms of domestic product, and there's going to be more tariffs on China. He already said that during his campaign. So that's coming. I would imagine there's probably going to be more tariffs on a country like Malaysia, India, it wouldn't surprise me. Thailand, it wouldn't surprise me. Those type of countries, probably staying away from European countries if I had to guess, although who knows. But that's what I would imagine he would target if he does go through with this. You don't have to recreate the $2 trillion you lose from not collecting the income taxes, which is what Trump is going for. If you're able to cut some of that waste down and then also tariff countries strategically based off of already having a surplus in terms of domestic produce, that's something that you could potentially do. You're going to need Congress to eliminate it, and certainly I'm sure the people would be on board, so you could get public pressure there. So I'm sure it could get some support, but it is a complex thing. I mean, I give Trump credit. He certainly brought up some really interesting, he brought up yesterday the idea of just deporting people that are like felons and multiple time criminals, and just saying, get out of our country. We'll pay other countries to take these people away. How crazy is that? It's like the idea, if you've got someone that just keeps committing violent crimes, why should they be in the country even if they've got citizenship? I mean, Trump is really starting to propose some things. I think he knows this is it. He's got to go hard, and he is. And we'll see what happens when it comes to this, but apparently his tax plan that was very, very popular, that Democrats refused to say they were going to renew in 2025, because remember, 2017, he implements the Tax and Jobs Act, I believe is what it was, and it lowers everyone's taxes. That's another thing that liberals kept lying about. I mean, it's just a blatant lie. Oh, it only lowers taxes for rich people. No, it lowers taxes for everyone. Yes, you are right. It does lower taxes for rich people, but it lowers taxes for people making $13,000 a year, $36,000 a year, $360,000 a year. That's what it is. It lowers taxes for everyone. It's not just lowering taxes for rich people. But because it does, they think they can just say that. But no, it lowered taxes for everyone. But now Trump wants to redo it and make it even more better for people and just everyday citizens in terms of taking away that income tax and potentially using tariffs and some of the stuff that Trump is talking about. Listen, this is very hard to implement, but the United States, just because of how the sheer power that we have and what we command, if you strategically target certain countries, obviously the retort is that, and this is, it's a longer plan that would need cooperation from the next administrations and everything like that. It's not just something that gets done in 4 years. You can start it and get it going. But the idea is we produce our product more domestically, and we stop having these unhealthy relationships with these foreign countries where they make cheaper products through slave labor, where the people are getting paid nothing. And, companies obviously like that. So that's why all the jobs go overseas, mainly to China, but also other places. And the idea is we want to eliminate that. That's unhealthy action. And listen, tariffs, you want to say, well, it's going to drive up the prices. I do think people are overestimating the exact cost in terms of, oh, everything's going to go up times 20, especially when you consider we just dealt with a total increase of around 20% in terms of inflation under the Biden administration. Tariffs, I would highly doubt, maybe on certain select goods. When it comes to the countries we're targeting tariffs against, certain goods that we import from there, maybe like a select item would go up significantly. But just by and large, when you're talking about inflation, 20%, everything is going up because your dollar is becoming less powerful. That's not what these tariffs are. They're going to target certain countries and certain goods in specific, not the entire thing like inflation does in terms of just the dollar becoming less valuable, which obviously hurts everyone. If you got money sitting in the bank, it's just gonna hurt it by the fact that there's more money being printed. So when it comes to this, it's certainly interesting if Trump could get it done. It's going to be very hard. There's a lot of moving parts, but I do think it would be the combination of, you don't have to make up the $2 trillion, which is what it's estimated to be in terms of the amount of revenue the United States makes off of these income taxes, because you would be cutting some of the government waste to where the government spending goes down. I know a lot of presidents promised that. I understand it. But if something like this were to be implemented, trying to make up that money just through tariffs you're stretching yourself thin. And if you're talking about trade wars with multiple countries, it becomes a big issue because now you're starting to lose leverage in negotiations when you're in trade wars with several different countries to the point where multiple things in different sectors are costing a ton of money because of the trade war and the taxes. So we will have to see what happens in terms of this. It's going to be hard to do. I give Trump credit for trying it. It's the idea. I mean, he's going back to the late 1800s. The problem there is, they've talked about simplifying the tax code and just taxes in general. And this would also speak to the idea of doing it. The government was a lot smaller in the late 1800s. And obviously, Republicans like a smaller government. But to get back to that point, it's like apples and oranges. It's very hard. Now, you could try and cut it some, but I'm just not sure how much you'll be able to cut it. But he is referencing the time period before 1913 when the income taxes were implemented and the United States getting the money through tariffs with a smaller government with significantly less government spending. That would be the idea of what Trump would want to get back to. So we'll see if he's able to do it. Certainly it's very ambitious. And even if you could do something to where you cut the income taxes in half, that would be amazing. Right? And just to see someone talk like this and think out of the box and the idea of, no, I mean, we're the most powerful country in the world, the amount of stuff that we produce, the amount of countries that rely on us more than we rely on them. Why don't we take advantage of this and use other countries to basically pay for our citizens' taxes? And obviously it doesn't work like that exactly. It's more of a proxy thing through tariffs, and other countries can retaliate and they can get angry and they can start trade wars. That's all possibilities that they're going to have to deal with. But if you do it strategically with countries to where you already have certain domestic production, then this could potentially be, I mean, the tariffs with China were a major hit. Absolutely, they were. We had pretty significant tariffs there that Trump introduced, and there was no crazy price increase. And Biden kept the tariffs because it was great for leverage for the United States against China. So, and by the way, Trump said more tariffs are coming against China just because of the amount of the deficit and just how much we trade with China. So we will have to see what ends up happening in terms of this. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.